Just gonna double check. We got a
Dobry wieczór, widzowie WP Sportowe Fakty. Dzisiaj wyjątkowy dzień. Dziś świętuje Bartosz Zmarzlik, 26. urodziny naszego polskiego mistrza, a powoli także legendy światowego speedwaya. Dzisiaj ze mną inna legenda, absolutny rekordzista, jeżeli chodzi o cykl Grand Prix. Najwięcej startów, najwięcej finałów, najwięcej punktów. Nie wypadł z tego cyklu między 95 rokiem a 2019, kiedy to musiał się wycofać. Dzisiaj Amerykanin Greg Hancock jest ze mną. Hello Greg, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself, I should say?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. Thank you for joining me tonight.
It's a pleasure,
Awesome.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Drodzy widzowie, ja się nazywam Marcin Musiał, to jest program Żużlowe Rozmowy, program bardzo prosty w swojej istocie. Niektóre pytania zadaję ja, niektóre pytania zadajecie wy w komentarzach na Facebooku i na YouTubie. Czekamy na wasze pytania, na wasze wspomnienia związane z Gregiem Hancockiem. On za chwilę na te najlepsze odpowie i porozmawiamy sobie i o tej nowej roli w Betardzie Sparcie Wrocław, ale także o poprzednich doświadczeniach przez te 30 lat kariery. All right, Greg, I know you went back to California. How was your flight? How was everything?
Yeah, I'm back here in Southern California again now, and everything went really smooth. It was a nice, easy trip, and made it home a good time. So yeah, back in the sunshine again, and back with the family. So I'm not complaining.
Greg nie może narzekać, bo jest teraz z rodziną w południowej Kalifornii, wrócił do swojego rodzinnego domu i od razu czekało na niego słońce, także nie może narzekać. Right, so I want to talk about everything. I have so many questions for today, but we need to start with your recent involvement with Betard Sparcie Wrocław. Tell us exactly what are you going to do, because we hear some rumors about, you being a coach of the young riders, and then we see you at the game, and then basically what do you do?
Well, I've made an agreement with Wrocław to be a coach for the team to help. Obviously, the young riders, and any of the riders in the team really that feel that they can get something from what I have to offer. It's hard to consider myself as a coach in this manner. I still consider myself a team player. That I'm a part of the team. That I'm working with these guys. It's to stand there and you feel the adrenaline. You feel the rush when you're at the track. You get the vibe of everything, of the pre-race jitters to walking the track before, analyzing things, deciding what you're going to do with your bike. So when I'm in the pits, I kind of just scout around a little bit and work with these guys to the best that I can, and put advice or ideas where I feel it's necessary.
Well, so I watched you at the game, obviously, on Friday in Wrocław, and what was actually tremendous was watching you just high-fiving everyone, tapping them on their shoulders. It's also some sort of a moral support. I don't know if you agree.
Well, obviously, if they're open-minded and they have, their mind is like this, it's a lot easier to get in and work and help them to acknowledge or absorb any information that I can pass on. So, like I said, I'm a team player, so for me, it's second nature to give a high five and a pat on the back when they do something good. And if things don't go as planned, that's you've got to kind of give them their space. You got to let them know what they got going on, and learn their ways, learn their capabilities, and know when you can approach them and get into their own space.
Zapytałem o to, co dokładnie ma robić we Wrocławiu, czy jest trenerem, czy pomaga wszystkim, czy pomaga tylko młodzieży. Greg mówi, że tak naprawdę nie nazwałby siebie trenerem, chociaż tak to jest wpisane w umowie, ale on mówi, że doświadcza cały czas tej adrenaliny, kiedy wychodzą na obchód toru, kiedy jest w parku maszyn, to ciężko się nie udzielać, nie być w boksach w zasadzie każdego zawodnika, przybić piątkę. No i właśnie też o to zapytałem, czy na tym też polega jego rola, żeby trochę wesprzeć zawodników mentalnie, bo mogliśmy to zobaczyć w piątkowym meczu, kiedy on tak naprawdę skakał po parku maszyn i był we wszystkich boksach i wszystkim pomagał. Mówi, że to jest po prostu jego osobowość, która wychodzi w tych momentach. Jeżeli zawodnicy mają otwartą głowę i chcą usłyszeć jakieś jego porady, no to dlaczego ma im nie pomagać i wykorzystać całą wiedzę, którą zdobył w czasie swojej kariery. What are the first few things you noticed when you were in Wrocław? Because I know you practice a lot. A few days prior to the first game, what were the things that you worked on?
Well, it's those are the things that we pretty much keep private between us. And what we're going to do is, how I'm going to help the guys, how I visualize. I watch them ride, and I let them, more or less warm up on the track, and then we start one by one to try to improve or just make adjustments to, or sometimes you just got to let them go around. Sometimes you can just see that the potential is there. There's not a lot you need to offer. They just need lap times, and they need to be reminded of the positives and perhaps some things that could be adjusted. I never like to think that there's anything bad in what they do, but everything can always be a little bit better.
That is true. So what I've seen on Instagram was that you basically worked on starts like right off the gate, and that was crucial on Friday. Is that what you mostly work on with the younger riders?
No, starts are, everybody knows that starts are, probably 90% of the game these days with the way the tracks are, and everybody's fast, juniors, the seniors, it doesn't matter where they are in the spectrum of the team. They're all really good and they're all really fast. So making passes or making maneuvers are not always easy. So you have to put a lot of focus on the starts. And that's just one area that I look at from time to time to see how can I help this guy, because I know my technique, I know how I ride, I know how my bikes are, but trying to translate that into a kid who's 6 inches or a foot taller than me, and how he sits on the bike, what kind of engine he's got, what kind of chassis he's got, you really have to make a lot of adjustments.
Zapytałem o to, nad czym pracowali przez te kilka dni, kiedy był we Wrocławiu na torze. Mówi, że tak naprawdę pracowali troszkę nad wszystkim, bo widzi potencjał we wszystkich zawodnikach. Nigdy nie lubi myśleć, że coś jest z nimi nie tak, ale zawsze jest jakieś pole do poprawy. Dlatego czasami warto ich po prostu wypuścić, żeby pojeździli kilka kółek, bo czasami to jest tylko to, czego potrzebują, żeby rozjeździć się i żeby poczuć, że mają tę moc. Dopytałem w takim razie, czy pracowali mocno nad startami, które w piątek okazały się bardzo ważnym elementem meczu. Mówi, że starty to 90% tego, co dziś na żużlu decyduje o wyniku, że tak naprawdę wszyscy są szybcy, niezależnie od swojej pozycji w zespole, czy to są juniorzy, czy to są seniorzy, każdy potrafi jeździć i każdy potrafi się mijać, ale tak naprawdę to ten start jest kluczowy, więc to był jeden z tych elementów, nad którymi musieli popracować, bo jak sam mówi Greg, on wie, jak on startuje, jaką on ma technikę i wie, jak chciałby ją przelać na innych zawodników, ale mówi, że musi też uważać, bo każdy zawodnik jest inny, niektórzy są 12-15 centymetrów wyżsi, więc Greg zagląda im do silnika i sprawdza, czy ogólnie do maszyny i sprawdza, co można tam poprawić i jak dostosować to do konkretnego zawodnika. Well, thank you for the insight on what you're doing in Wrocław, but I want to get into the good stuff, into the basically 30 years of riding. I mean, this is a tremendous career. Congratulations, by the way, on everything you've done. You won 3 world championships basically recently. If you think about it, it's just a few years back. So a lot of people say that the way you achieved everything in the last decade, the previous decade basically, was your ability to adjust to all the equipment changes and all the track changes. Is that true? Would you consider yourself one of the best riders equipment-wise?
I wouldn't call myself one of the best riders. I would probably just call myself one of the most determined. And, everybody's got their thing and everybody knows what they want to do to win. But, being the more advanced in age rider in the circuit for a lot of years, you learn that you can't just win by going full gas. You have to be smarter sometimes, and that means you need to focus on the equipment. And it's the same as I'm doing with these guys with coaching them. It's not just about how they sit on the bike, it's the equipment too. So we're making a lot of changes to their equipment and a lot of adjustments, and things like that. I don't want to sit back and get complacent. I have to be a step ahead all the time. I had great people around me from the car industry, from the motorsports industry, helping me to make, engineering adjustments and things like that to my bike. So I never stop learning.
That's awesome. But well, looking at your titles, 2011 is definitely a breakthrough. This is when they introduced the silencers, the different type of silencer. That's when you won your second world championship, and you also won the only 2 gold medals in Poland right after that, 2011 and 2012. So it must have had some sort of impact on you.
It did. There's a lot of things that happened there from late 2009, 2010. Things really changed. And that's what basically triggered and sent me on my mission here over these, this last decade, I should say. And it made a massive change. I mean, winning with obviously with Tarnów and winning with Falubas as well in Poland. Yeah, exactly. Those two, they were really, really good periods in my career, and I was at my prime. I just found at so late in the game, if you want to say, that a lot of guys have basically hung it up and moved on by that time, but I was just getting the ball rolling, and I'm a late bloomer, but I had a great time. I learned a lot, but more importantly, I had a really good coach or team manager in the team. That was Marek Cieślak. He was phenomenal, taught me a lot, and I gained a lot of respect of how important a manager or a coach is in a team, a trainer, if you call it over there. What they can do for the team, how they can get the best out of their riders. You don't have to have, 5 number ones in the team. You can have just a leader. You can have 1 or 2 guys that are just part of the game, but everybody works well together.
Zapytałem o tą dekadę zmian na żużlu, bo Grek uchodzi za zawodnika, który swoje sukcesy odnosił po tym, jak przedstawiono nowe tłumiki. To było przed sezonem 2011. On właśnie wtedy wygrał swoje drugie Mistrzostwo Świata, a także rok po roku zdobył złoty medal w Lidze Polskiej, w Ekstralidze. Grek mówi, że po pierwsze nie uważa siebie za najlepszego zawodnika, ale że najbardziej zdeterminowanego i że to było kluczowe. Określa siebie też jako zawodnika, który późno się nauczył, ale nauczył się przede wszystkim tego, że nie warto mieć zawsze odkręconą manetkę gazu na pełną moc, bo to nigdzie daleko cię nie zaprowadzi, trzeba wiedzieć, kiedy troszkę zejść z tej prędkości, i on próbuje to teraz przelać na młodych zawodników. Mówił także o Marku Cieślaku, który był w pewnym sensie jego mentorem. Mówi, że Marek nauczył go bardzo wielu dobrych nawyków, a przede wszystkim jest dobrym menadżerem, który udowadnia, że nie trzeba mieć 5 zawodników z numerem 1, 5 liderów, tylko można zbudować zespół poprzez budowanie każdego zawodnika indywidualnie. Grek podkreśla także, że miał bardzo dobry team i ludzi, którzy go sponsorowali, którzy mu podpowiadali, także z przemysłu samochodowego, z innych rodzajów wyścigów motocyklowych, i to też na pewno zaprocentowało w tej ostatniej dekadzie sukcesów. You mentioned a few great names. I mean, if you look back in time, it's 30 years of racing. You basically started with riders like Jason Kramp and Tony Rickardson, and then you went through the Tomasz Golub era, as we say it in Poland, and now it's Bartosz Marzik, and you competed against him as well. How much has Speedway changed since you started? I mean, we see changes in bikes, in tracks. What did you notice the most?
Well, most was in the equipment, to say that much, because obviously you had the changes in the Grand Prix system from the individual world championship as it was on a one-day race before. But those things, the formats changed a lot, so you had to learn how to adapt and find what works better for you. And are you a guy that's just explosive and has to win every race, or are you a guy that's just you gotta be there and be in the game all the time? And but for me, it was probably the equipment changes that were the biggest factor. I went from the standard upright with the pogo forks, as we called it, with the old spring type and bushings, to a leading link front end, which followed up with the lay down engines that they came in. A lot of different frame variations, engine combinations, what angle the engine was going to be at, what balance factor was in the engine, to the carburetors. The carburetor issues were massive in the early days of these laydowns. And then as that grew, it went from the standard 86 or even longer stroke engines into the 90 bore, into the 92 bore, the super short ones that you have today, all this kind of stuff, which can go on and on and on. And then for me, the development of the chassis is where it became the most massive change for me over the years. I had really good guys around me. I got really great engine guys that they were doing their part. So then you get the engine and the rider. you still are missing one key component there, which is the chassis. So I had great engines, I had great mechanics.
What is the chassis? I'm not really sure what chassis means, to be honest with you.
So if you have
part,
the chassis is the frame, basically the frame and the wheels. So you have your complete motorcycle. When you take the engine away, then you would have the chassis.
Okay.
So when the engine in the bike, that would be at the chassis. So your wheels and your frame.
I just wasn't sure. Now I know. Let me just translate all of that really quick.
No problem.
Zapytałem w takim razie, co się zmieniło przez te kilka dekad startów, bo Greg startował przez 30 lat, wymieniłem kilku zawodników, z którymi rywalizował. Mówi, że przede wszystkim zmienił się sprzęt i to widać to po silnikach, po tym jak są nachylone silniki, po tym jak są zbalansowane. Porozmawialiśmy przed chwilą o ramie, nie byłem pewien, czy chodzi mu o ramę. Mówi, że to też miało bardzo duże znaczenie na jego sylwetkę podczas jazdy i że to dopracowywali i do tego potrzebny był też dobry team mechaników, których zawsze miał, żeby zgrać nie tylko dobry motocykl i nie tylko dobrego zawodnika, ale żeby to wszystko razem ze sobą współgrało. No i tutaj Greg mówi, że miał duże szczęście, żeby na takich ludzi trafić. Speaking of great teams and great mechanics, I think Rafał Haj was your mechanic for a really long time. And Marek Cieślak, that you mentioned before, also wrote in his book the first time you started working with him. It was some sort of an accident when you had an Aussie guy, he dropped out or just wasn't capable of doing that in Wrocław. And then you got Rafał Haj, and then that was his first job as a mechanic, I think. And on the very first day, he forgot to put oil. Is that true? Is that the story of Rafał Haj?
Well, in a nutshell, that is kind of how it worked. But Rafał obviously was a former rider. I raced together with him in Wrocław many years ago when he was still a junior at that point. And then later he worked for a lot of riders prior to working with me, with Robert Dados. He worked with Jacek Krzyszaniak, I think, and a few guys here and there. He was pretty well established. And when he started working for me, I think we did have an issue with an oil issue in the engine, and it was probably a miscommunication more than anything. So that's how we started our collaboration. But he basically showed up. We gave him the keys to the car with all the equipment in it from a Grand Prix in Prague, and he drove back to Poland the next day to start his working relationship with me. And that's where I was coming to in all this. You get your engine, you get your chassis, you got your rider, and then you've got to have the mechanic who knows how to put all those fundamentals together, understanding how the rider thinks, how he looks when he comes to the races. Is he prepared? Is he nervous? Is he in a good state of mind? And then making the correct adjustments to your bike. For me, I
assume he didn't know it from the start, or did he?
He didn't know me like that from the start. So we were together for the better part of 15 or 16 years of working together. So in the last 10 years, he knew me better than I knew myself, and I spent more time with him, I think, than I did with my wife. So we became really good buddies. But for me to put a price on Rafał Haj, it's priceless.
Zapytałem właśnie w kontekście mechanika Rafała Haja, który współpracował, jak to Greg wspomniał, 15-16 lat, jak to mówi. Poznaliśmy się w tym czasie bardzo dobrze, widywałem go częściej niż moją żonę. Nasza współpraca, o czym pisał Marek Cieślak w swojej książce, zaczęła się od tego, że zapomniał nalać oleju do mojego silnika. Zapytałem o to, jak to dokładnie wyglądało. Mówi, że to raczej były problemy z komunikacją, że nie winiłby Rafała za to, że wspomina go bardzo dobrze i wspomina, że ich współpraca zaczęła się po Grand Prix w Pradze, gdzie Rafał otrzymał kluczyki do samochodu i musiał przewieźć cały sprzęt następnego dnia do Wrocławia. I tak się zaczęła współpraca obu panów. Let me just go back to Grand Prix really quick. I think yesterday one of the TV experts here in Poland said, it was different times back then when Tomasz Golob and Greg Hancock used to compete in Grand Prix. Sure, Bartek Zmarzlik is great, but it's not as competitive as it used to be. Would you agree with that statement?
No, I wouldn't agree with that whatsoever. It's really difficult. I went through quite a few different generations or eras of Speedway. And although you can probably say that, that was more tough back then than it was today, you have to factor in so many different things with all the leagues that were being done, all the different kinds of engine tuners, all the different types of tracks. And there were probably a group of riders, about 8 riders that you could look back on, maybe 6 to 8 riders in the Grand Prix that were always in that 8 top 8-10 zone, right? So
Well,
and
you
they
were one
might.
of them, sure.
Yeah, I was in there for quite a while. Thomas Golub was in there, Lee Adams, Jason Crump, Nicky Pedersen, Tony Rickardson. You know, I don't want to leave anybody out. Billy Hamill. There was a lot of riders there that were a part of that group, right? And the numbers just kind of swapped around every year, you know, however it went. And there was a lot of consistency, but you know, being out of the game the last 2 years and being like on the other side of the fence, when I watched the racing from another set of eyes, it's a pretty attractive product, man. And it is super exciting. Track conditions can change. I mean, how many different winners did you have last year in the beginning of the series? So for somebody to say that
Even
it's not as competitive.
The same
What's
weekend,
that?
same track. I said the same weekend, same track, and different winners, right?
Exactly right. So I mean, you know, it's easy to overlook that as a, you know, there's a lot of specialists out there that have their opinions about things, but not at all. I think that the product you have today, Betard Sparcie, is by far, he's the man to beat. He has shown his form, and he's going to be difficult to beat again this year, but he's not unbeatable.
Wracając jeszcze do tłumaczenia w poprzedniej kwestii, pominąłem tam w tłumaczeniu o Rafaele Haju, że współpracował później z Jackiem Krzyżaniakiem i Robertem Dodosem i świetnie sobie poradził. Natomiast teraz zapytałem o Sławka Kryjoma, który wczoraj powiedział w kanale Plus, że era Grega Hancocka, Tomasza Goloba była inna, że wtedy w latach poprzednich to Grand Prix było bardziej wyrównane i ciężej było zdobywać tytuły, nie ujmując Bartkowi Zmarzlikowi. Greg mówi, że się nie zgadza, że teraz patrząc na to z boku od 2 lat zza bandy, to jest naprawdę widowiskowy produkt. Bartek Zmarzlik jest znakomitym zawodnikiem, ciężko go będzie pobić w tym roku, ale to nie znaczy, że jest to niemożliwe. Tak czy inaczej, Greg wymienił tutaj kilka nazwisk, między innymi Billy Hamila, z którym jeździł. Mówi, że zawsze w tym Grand Prix była 8 zawodników, na których warto było patrzeć, która w zasadzie się nie zmieniała i podobnie jest teraz, mówi Greg Hancock. There is a question from the chat. So no name, a username, no name, is asking, what do you think about the future of Speedway in the US? So, and I just want to add to that, Luke Becker had a great performance, I think, yesterday or during this weekend in Łódź.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really happy for Luke that he had a good start to the year. You know, it's I think he had a little bit of a difficult run to begin with and getting himself set up and track conditions with the weather and all that. But seeing his results Sunday was for me was really, really impressive. And or Saturday, I'm really happy for him. The future of American Speedway, it's bright. However, it's you know, that is one thing that has been the question for a long time. We have a lot of talent here. There's a lot of kids from the 50cc, you know, very young age, right up to where Luke and Brock Nickel are your 2 top American guys on the international circuit these days. There are a lot of kids coming up. The biggest hamper is when they get to the level where it's time to move overseas. You got to leave California. You got to leave. I mean, California is where Speedway is these days, pretty much. There are other states, but you got to leave your family, you got to leave the sunshine, you got to leave the food, you got to leave the culture, you got to leave friends. And the riders who are prepared to do that are the ones who are going to be successful. You know, Luke Becker and Brock are both going to be successful riders. And, you know, obviously I have a lot of respect for Luke. I've been working with him for about 3 years now. And the kid has a fabulous work ethic, and he has to work really, really hard. The natural talent doesn't just sit in the spine. He has to work a little harder than the others to find it, but I'm confident that he'll get there and he'll have a good, long, solid career.
Pytanie oczywiście dotyczyło przyszłości amerykańskiego Speedwaya. Greg mówi, że ona barwi się w jasnych barwach i że jest o nią spokojny. Wymienił tutaj Luka Beckera, o którego dopytałem. To jest zawodnik Orła Łódź, który zaliczył dobry start do tego sezonu, z czego Greg oczywiście bardzo się cieszy. Mówi, że mamy wielu utalentowanych zawodników w klasie od 50cc do tych 500, które oczywiście tutaj obowiązują w Polsce. Mówi, że najtrudniejszym dla amerykańskich, a w zasadzie kalifornijskich zawodników, bo tutaj skupia się cały żużel w Stanach, jest wyjazd właśnie za ocean, dlatego że wtedy trzeba zostawić kulturę, rodzinę, przyjaciół, znajomych i odnaleźć się w nowym kraju. To nie jest zawsze łatwe. Luke Becker musi pracować nieco ciężej. On ma talent, ale talent to nie wszystko. Trzeba pracować, żeby dorównać innym zawodnikom. Antoni is asking about your son Wilbur. is he going to be a future Sparta Wrocław rider once he turns 16?
Well, there's always a chance, right? And
Right.
right now he'll be 16 and actually a month from today, and he's doing really, really well in the sport. He's developing at a really good level and speed. So there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to go to Europe one day, and he's half a Swede already, so going to Europe is kind of second nature to him. But he's got a lot of good opportunities ahead of him, and he works hard, and he really he eats, sleeps, drinks, bleeds the sport. So there's always a good chance that we might have a future Betard Sparcie rider in the team there.
Jest na to szansa, że Wilbur Hancock zostanie zawodnikiem Betardu Sparty. Za miesiąc kończy 16 lat. Nie mam wątpliwości, że pojedzie do Europy. W połowie jest Szwedem, więc będzie to dla niego łatwiejsze. On oddycha, on żyje i krwawi tym sportem, mówi Greg Hancock. Dlatego trzymam za niego kciuki i nie mam wątpliwości, że zrobi kiedyś karierę. There is a question from Pelchar. Whether you're going to be a coach one day. Is that the plan for the future?
For me, this coaching aspect was brought about by Andrzej Rusko, who contacted me and asked me if I would be interested to join his club as a coach, and he was really determined to take his team to another level. And his approach was obviously very open and very impressive, the way he came across. So he has put a lot of ideas and things together of what he would like to see for the future. And, for me right now, where I'm at, I can see that I have a lot to offer to the team, to the riders, and it's whether they're open for it. Right. So, I don't know if I'll end up being a manager or if I'll be a trainer, or however you call it there. But right now, I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. I think we've learned a lot in the first 2 weeks, and we are obviously developing new collaborations daily. And, as long as we see progress and successful results, this could continue to grow.
So when Andrzej Rusko called you, did you guys talk about 2004 final or not at all? Because he once said that you were on his blacklist after the final.
Oh, did he? Well, that's not something that he brings up today. We whatever sits in, if I was on his blacklist, it's a shame. It is what it is, right? But it's a new day, it's a new year, and new goals to go after. So that's the way I look at it.
So did you guys mention it at all, or did you not bring it up whatsoever?
No, that's never been brought up. Not to me, not since, I think it gets brought up by people like you most of the time.
All right. Let me translate that all really quick. Pytanie oczywiście dotyczyło, czy Greg chce zostać trenerem żużlowym. Mówi, że tak naprawdę ciężko mu powiedzieć, czy będzie trenerem, czy menadżerem, czy nie skupia się na tym. Chodziło o to, że kiedy zadzwonił prezes Andrzej Rusko, to przedstawił bardzo fajną wizję rozwoju klubu, rozwoju młodych zawodników i Greg chciał być tego częścią i przekazać im swoją wiedzę. Zapytałem w takim razie, czy między zawodnikiem a prezesem wywiązała się rozmowa odnośnie finału z 2004 roku. Wtedy Greg nie pojawił się na tym meczu, bo nie przeleciał mu samolot, czy spóźnił się na samolot, jak wtedy tłumaczył. Mówi, że ta sytuacja w ogóle nie została poruszona ani przez telefon, ani od tego czasu. Mówi, że jeżeli Andrzej Rusko kiedyś wypowiedział się, że Greg Hancock jest na jego czarnej liście, to wielka szkoda, ale cieszę się, że to się zmieniło i panowie rzekomo do tego tematu już nie wracali. I know we talked a little bit about the future of Speedway in the US, but so next year the Discovery Group is taking over the GP series, and well, obviously it's a US-based group. Would you consider advising them or be a part of the project, or not at all? I'm not saying that they called you and asked you, but if they did, what would you say?
Oh, well, that's hard to say just, in this particular moment. But no, I mean, obviously, I think it's great news that there's there'll be a new promotion coming in that's going to take over the Speedway series. And as much as BSI has been phenomenal for the sport, sometimes we need change. And the way it's worked out, this is obviously Discovery Group and Eurosport. This is a massive conglomerate that's going to take this over. So I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of changes. We're going to see a lot of positive changes and a lot of new inspiration coming in. So if they contact me, of course, I'm always open to hear what they got to say. And it's an honor if they do.
Well, one of the things that they mentioned is that they want to reach out to other countries, other destinations that have never seen GP series. Well, not never, but not in the last few years or few decades. And well, they were discussing the US basically. So do you think there's a venue in the US where they could host a GP series event? I heard something about Nashville. Is that a good idea?
You know, there are talks already about possibilities of coming to the U.S., and I think they're very realistic. And I know the venues that have been mentioned, you know, and it sounds really interesting. And for me, I'm kind of bummed that I'm not in the game right now as far as an athlete to represent my country. That was always a dream to race a world championship on my homeland, and that's long gone for me now. But looking at the potential of it, that they're going to come here. For me, it's more inspiring to really push the American riders to try to develop and get somebody up to speed that can be a great representative for our country.
So what about the venues? You mentioned that California is the home of US Speedway, but I don't think there's a venue unless, you know, they do it on a regular stadium. Is that a possibility?
Oh yeah, of course. I know there have been discussions of various stadiums here in California. There have been discussions of stadiums across the U.S. And I think that they'll probably try to find a venue which kind of suits not just Speedway fans, but motorsport fans in general, that will get a really good introduction to Speedway racing. Flat track is massive here in the U.S. I've attended an event a few weeks back with a good buddy of mine, Kelsey Gordon.
In Florida, right?
Yeah, in Florida, in Volusia. And I got a really good education from my buddy Kelsey that showed me kind of everything about the game, how it works. And I've met a few of the riders in the past. So to be in the pits and see what they're doing there, how similar it is to Speedway, but how different it is at the same time, there's a lot of really great possibilities that could come out of this for the future. And maybe we can cross over a few of those guys into our sport in the future too.
Zapytałem o plany nowej grupy, która od przyszłego roku przejmuje cykl Grand Prix. To grupa Discovery, która pochodzi ze Stanów. Zapytałem, czy Greg rozważyłby bycie swego rodzaju doradcą tej grupy przy organizacji kolejnych turniejów. Mówi, że oczywiście to byłby zaszczyt, gdyby mógł do nich dołączyć i gdyby mógł doradzać im. Żałuje, że to nie stało się za jego kadencji, bo zawsze chciał jechać o Mistrzostwo Świata także w swoim kraju. Takich wyścigów dawno nie widzieliśmy już w Stanach. Zadałem w takim razie pytanie, gdzie moglibyśmy je zobaczyć, bo oczywiście takie rozmowy są. Zapytałem, czy może to być w Nashville. Mówi, że oczywiście rozmawiają o wielu lokalizacjach i że to jest bardzo prawdopodobne i bardzo realne, że takie wyścigi w Stanach się pojawią. Zapytałem w takim razie dokładnie gdzie. Mówi, że ciężko wskazać miejsce, szczególnie, że w Kalifornii nie ma takiego toru, na którym można by zrobić typowe wyścigi żużlowe. Musieliby to zrobić na jakimś innym stadionie, który byłby specjalnie przygotowany do żużla, ale nie byłaby to impreza tylko żużlowa. Żeby przedstawić to kibicom w Stanach, trzeba by pojawić się przy okazji jakichś innych eventów i sportów motorowych. Greg wspomniał tutaj, że był niedawno na Florydzie na zawodach z flat tracku. To jest sport, którego my w Polsce chyba nie znamy. To jest też sport motorowy. Wyścigi są na torze nieco dłuższym niż te żużlowe i Greg mówi, że to było ciekawe oglądanie tego w boksach zawodników, jak bardzo podobne są te motocykle i podobny jest ten sport, ale jednocześnie jak różne są to od siebie sporty. Greg, so there's already a question from the chat. If you're ever going to come back and we're ever going to see you racing back on track. I know you said no before, but listen, if the situation occurs and Sparta Wrocław needs you and there's a bike and they need one international rider, what would you do?
That's a clause in the contract that's not a possibility, actually. So no, I don't have any plans of making any returns anytime soon to the racing world. Although I am on the track still quite a bit myself. I do a lot of riding, and I intend to do a lot of riding together with the team in Wrocław in the next few weeks anyway. So no, I don't have any plans of making a comeback. I think I'll leave that to Jason Crump right now.
Greg nie zamierza wracać do sportu żużlowego, mówi, że zostawi to Jasonowi Crumpowi, żeby wrócił. Ma styczność z motocyklem, będzie jeździł także z zawodnikami Betard Spartie Wrocław, kiedy powróci tutaj już za kilka tygodni, ale ma w kontrakcie wpisane, że jako trener nie będzie występował tutaj jako zawodnik, nie ma żadnych planów, żeby wrócić na tor. Going back to Speedway memories, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. let's be honest. So today I found a video of you fighting Nicky Pedersen. I think it was in Sweden. And let me tell you, it is the most hilarious speedway fight I've ever seen. You sprinted full on for like 50 yards, I think, and then you tackled him down. What happened? Like, who won the fight, or do you have any other memories of fights on track with other speedway riders?
I don't think that was me. I think that was just somebody that did some Photoshop.
Oh, really? No. So the title was Greg Hancock and Nicky Pedersen speedway fight.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, you know, I think Nicky and I have had our fair share of what do you want to say, headbutting over the years and of racing, and you know, I seem to be on the wrong side of it most of the time. And this one time, I'd had enough. I thought, well, if the referees aren't going to do something about it and try to be a little bit more firm, then you know, I'd had enough, and I was. I'm just gonna have to let him know how I really feel, you know. So I did that, and of course, it made headlines across the world of motorsport and front page of newspapers in different countries. And you're you know, it's amazing what you got to do to get in the media these days.
Zapytałem o bójkę z Nickiem Pedersenem. Jest takie wideo dostępne na YouTubie, bardzo polecam, bo to jedna z najśmieszniejszych żużlowych bójek, jakie widziałem. Grek wstaje z toru, biegnie 50 metrów, po czym rzuca się jak Superman na Nickiego Pedersena. I just said that you flew like a Superman.
Yeah, I know there were some really good memes going around for a while there too. So I loved every minute of it. You know, when you think about how it all happened, and you know, if it all happened different today, I would probably approach it in a different manner. But it's easy to say that now.
It is easier to say that now. So you would have approached it a different way today, but would you have punched anyone if you had another chance? So you seem like a very nice person, but it just feels like a right question right now.
Yeah, you know what? No, punching, I'm never the kind of guy to hit somebody. I think that I just wanted to take him off his bike. That was what I was doing, kind of.
And you succeeded.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to punch him. I just wanted to take him off his bike. So that's what I did.
That was a American football style tackle. It was great. I'm sure your sons could use that in their games. Wracając do tłumaczenia, Greg Hancock rzucił się na Nickiego Pedersena i to tak poleciał na niego mocno, zrzucił go z motocykla. Mówi, że dziś podszedłby do tego inaczej. Na początku Greg zażartował, że to nie był on i że to było sfotoshopowane, ale później wyjaśnił się, że faktycznie chciał wyjaśnić Nickiemu, jak się wtedy poczuł po tamtym upadku, który Nicky spowodował. Mówi, że dziś pewnie załatwiłby to inaczej. Chodziło mu tylko o to, żeby go zrzucić z motocykla. Zapytałem, czy w takim razie, skoro żałuje, że tak postąpił w tym wypadku, czy żałuje też, że kogoś nie uderzył albo z kimś nie zdał się w bójkę, czy ktoś nie zaszedł mu za skórę. Mówi, że nie, że mimo tego, że dzisiaj trzeba w mediach się postarać, żeby znaleźć się na nagłówkach, no to nikogo do tego by nie doprowadził. One more sad story from Poland. Actually, sad name, Ireneusz Nawrocki. That guy really did get behind your skin, didn't he?
Yeah, that was a tough period there. You know, everything about that year in Rzeszów was really panning out to be something extraordinary, and everything he said was phenomenal. You know, it sounded great, and sadly, it didn't turn out that way. We did get some success. The club won the league, and everything went the way we said that we were going to do, and we honored our part of the deal. So the rest of it has been kind of an interesting run, you know. So it's a shame that it turned out that way. More of a shame right now for the club, for the town, the sponsors, and the fans that supported the whole project, and then only to see it collapse in the end. It's a real shame.
Zapytałem o Ireneusza Nawrockiego. To taka już końcówka kariery w Polsce Grega Hancocka. Mówi, że dał się przekonać, że wszystko na papierze wyglądało dobrze, że wszystko, co obiecywał prezes rzeszowskiego klubu, brzmiało dobrze. Wygrali ligę, wywiązali się ze swoich zobowiązań, ale niestety prezes się z nich nie wywiązał po jego stronie. To prawdziwy wstyd dla klubu, dla miasta. Dodam tutaj, że ten wstyd może być troszkę inaczej przetłumaczony. Chodzi tak naprawdę o szkodę, jaką prezes tego klubu wyrządził dla miasta i dla klubu. Cóż może powiedzieć Greg Hancock? W zasadzie nie chcę bardziej rozwijać tego tematu. Okay, one last question, Greg, because I know I promised you about 30 minutes and Paul, you need to go back to your family. So, You went back to California. We already mentioned that. Unfortunately, you had to stop your career due to your wife's cancer fight. How is she doing right now? I know you gave an interview, I think in January, that she actually beat the cancer, which is fantastic. How is she feeling?
She's doing great. From today, she's cancer free at this stage, and we hope and anticipate that it's going to stay that way for the rest of her life. You get a lot of positive thoughts and a lot of things. We learned a lot through that 1 year. I say she did, but collectively as a family, as her support group here, we learned a lot, and we were. You have dark days, and she had really dark days, and I think it was that the fear of the unknown was the most scary part for all of us, and anybody that's had to deal with cancer of any sort probably understands that. And but she's here today. She's as fit as ever. She's strong mentally, physically, and still manages to keep me and the three boys in line to the best of her knowledge and the best of her nature. And she's our biggest supporter. So without her, we are nothing. We need her in our life, not just for a good time, but for a long time.
Look at you, a family man. I love that. I absolutely love everything you say. Speaking of family, what about your sons? We mentioned Wilbur, but you have 3 sons. How are they doing? What are they going to do in the future?
Oh, they're great. They're all 3 are just phenomenal. They're so special in so many ways, and they've all got their pros and their cons, of course, like we all do, right? So you have to weigh up the options and try to help them just to stay on a good path all the time. But they're wonderful. They're the light in our lives. They are the reason we wake up every day these days, and you never know what's coming, right? They come blasting through the door from first thing in the morning, and there's something new you're going to be faced with, and it's the most cool thing ever. So there's a lot of laughing. There's a lot of, hard times where you're like, no, you don't do that. And if I were you, I would do it this way rather than that way. But we have a really, really good time in this house.
Awesome. Let me just translate all of that really quick. Zapytałem o znany powód zakończenia kariery w 2019 roku, kiedy Greg musiał się wycofać, ponieważ jego żona walczyła z rakiem. Żona Jenny, zresztą druga jego żona, mówi, że to były naprawdę ciemne dni, ale pokonaliśmy tę chorobę. Jest teraz w najlepszej, też ciekawego sformułowania użył, bo mówi, że pokonaliśmy, a tak naprawdę to ona pokonała, ale to było dla nas jedno wielkie wspólne doświadczenie, które nas wzmocniło jako rodzinę. Mówi, że jest teraz w najlepszej formie, że codziennie sprawia radość jemu i wszystkim 3 synom i że tak naprawdę stanowią bardzo fajną, poukładaną rodzinę. Zapytałem w takim razie o tych 3 synów Grega, co będą robić w przyszłości, ale tutaj bardziej się wypowiedział o ich osobowości. Mówi, że każdy z nich ma swoje wady i swoje zalety, że czasami trzeba uderzyć pięścią w stół i czegoś ich nauczyć, powiedzieć, że ja zrobiłem to inaczej niż ty robisz, ale koniec końców, kiedy przychodzą rano, otwierają drzwi z nowym problemem, z nową sytuacją, z którą musimy sobie poradzić z moją żoną, to tak naprawdę jest to piękne i jest to coś, dlaczego warto żyć. I z tą piękną myślą, drodzy widzowie, dzisiaj was zostawię. Dziękuję za obecność, dziękuję za wszystkie pytania. Zapraszam już na kolejne żużlowe rozmowy. Marcin musiał, kłaniam się nisko. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for joining me. It was an awesome opportunity for us, for me to talk to you. All best of luck to you in Wrocław and in California.
Thank you very much, and anytime, man. I appreciate it. Just remember, go Sparta.
Greg oczywiście trzyma kciuki za Wrocław. Dziękuję także wam. Dziękuję za tę rozmowę. Wszystkiego dobrego, dobrej nocy.